Hi everyone, Matt Hetherington here from MHTableTennis.com, and I'm back with the second video in this review series of the Joola Vyzaryz blades. And this one, of course, is with the hybrid, the racket that has two different types of carbon on each side. The green side has the Super pbo-c, and the purple side has the regular pbo-c. The blade, of course, has koto layers on the outside, so a little bit stiffer, and for that added direct impact, and then softer limba layers underneath the carbon on the inside layer. I put Rhyzer50 Pro on the forehand, Rhyzer48 on the backhand, and put it through its paces. Played quite a lot with this one and really enjoyed trying it out. I got straight into things, very consistent for blocking on the backhand side, and I felt that was the same both sides of the racket. But my big thing with this racket review was to delve into whether there is actually a significant difference between having two different types of carbon and essentially what is one blade, and whether you can really have a significantly different feel on two sides of the same racket. Pleasantly enough, as I went through the review, I found that there were differences. The backhand side, where the blocking or countering or looping has big windows of safety and a lot of safety margins built in, and I really felt that once I started looping at the mid distance from the table. Even though it has nice built-in acceleration and a high amount of topspin, there is still a great amount of consistency. Now, of course, switching across to the forehand side was when you start to analyze what the difference is between both sides. Difficult to tell at first because, again, with the outer koto layers being a little stiffer and the softness on the inside and then the sweet spot in the carbon, still very good for blocking on the forehand side and allows you to really absorb the ball quite easily. Once you get into the looping, that's when you start to discover the differences. The forehand side is really great for driving through the ball. There's a lot of explosiveness built in. It still has a good window for safety. Once I got into the counter looping further back, that's when you really start to discover that. But then the one thing that really stands out on that Super pbo-c side is the large range of strokes that you can play. You can go from very high arcing, very high rotation topspin balls to third ball attacks and more powerful shots. And there's still a lot of safety built into that racket, and there's still a lot of touch and feeling that it offers. But the forehand side definitely does have more explosiveness. It requires you to play through the ball a little bit more, but you can play a big range of shots. You can spin a ball, control a ball, and then move to finishing a ball, all from the forehand side. And it gives you just a great amount of variety of attacking strokes to play with. So that was the one thing that impressed me on the forehand side, is having that range. And I definitely felt that when I had more time to build up and to transfer body weight, it was better suited. So at the mid distance and a little bit further back, the forehand side was great. I did one drill where I was countering close to the table a little bit more, and I felt with this one there were definitely more adjustments to be made. You had to be a little bit softer in the hands because it is stiffer. It doesn't have that catapult off the racket that perhaps the Rossi Emotion, which I usually use, has. So I did find it a little more difficult to control, and I wasn't able to just play with my hands like I usually would in those situations. Another thing that I ran into, which I felt was one area that needed some work, maybe from me or maybe from the blade, was, again, you didn't have the spring off the racket when you were generating shorter strokes. So in particular, the one thing that stood out for me was the Forehand Flick as the stroke that I struggled with the most. But again, that's going from using a very soft carbon blade with a lot of spring in it to using something a little bit more stiff. So the shorter strokes, you need to generate more acceleration, maybe be a little bit quicker in those strokes, especially the Forehand Flick. But got into playing some points. I played with a couple of different practice partners, as you'll see later on. I was able to play with really clean and great strokes, even back from the table. I was able to recover from being out of position. There was a great range on both sides. There was great safety. I felt very consistent when I was playing with the racket. I did have, again, a couple of issues trying to play that the forehand flick and also the backhand flick. I didn't quite get the acceleration I was looking for. But in the rallies, really felt like I could play with heavy spin, particularly on the backhand side. Very consistent for opening up the first ball, and then being able to get onto the forehand and play more forward and play more aggressively. I felt there were a lot of strengths in this blade, and it was very, very well balanced. And you can see even here in this random drill, being at the mid distance and having the time to build body weight into the shots more was particularly useful on the forehand side, and just being able to maintain a reasonable amount of acceleration on the backhand with a lot of safety. I went through these drills and was able to hit more balls on the table perhaps than I usually would. So definitely the consistency surprised me. I thought that the feeling was quite good. It was a little on the stiff side, particularly I'm not used to using koto layers on the outside of my racket, so there were some differences there. But overall, I did get some insight really into the differences between each side, and there was definitely more stability built into the backhand side, more capacity to play heavy spin on the backhand side, and a good control built in on the forehand side. Just having that huge range from being able to spin slow, open half long, all the way through to making powerful third ball attacks and hitting winners was pretty impressive. So if you're a player who likes to play dominant attack on one side and have control on the other, and you play either at the mid distance or further back from the table, this is definitely a blade that you could try out. I'll definitely be trying it out more, and it's a blade that I may even be considering to potentially change to. Bit too early to decide on that yet. And of course, I still have one more of the Vyzaryz blades to try out, and that is the Trinity with the interwoven pbo-c and ALC carbons and the X3. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you keep up with all of my videos, because that Trinity review will be coming soon. Thank you guys.